Thank you so much for receiving this interview for us. I'm very grateful. So before we start, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself? When did you join RPI?
Sure. So I came to RPI in June of 2018, so I've been here almost a year. And I came here from the University of Montana, and prior to coming here, I worked in international education for about 15 years.
Okay.
I started with programming, and then I started with programming as a student.
Okay.
And then I did programming and immigration advising as staff, and then I continued on, and then I moved here. Now I'm the director.
How do you like it so far?
I like it.
Yeah.
I really like it's an interesting because RPI has a large number of international students. It's a small institution, so RPI has about 7,500 students, and 15% of those are international students, and so that to me is very interesting.
15%.
15%.
So 1,500.
There are about we have about 1,490 students on campus from as of last fall, and then we also oversee the records for about 400 students that are on optional practical training when they graduate.
Was you in some similar place like ISSS in the University of Montana?
Yep, this is what I've been doing for 17 years now.
Okay. You did mention that you like traveling around the world.
I do.
How many countries have you been in?
I've been to probably 8 or 9 countries. Some very short, some just putting my feet on the ground, and then others visiting for longer periods. But
what's your favorite trip so far?
You know, they're all really different. I studied abroad in the Republic of Georgia, so I studied abroad in Tbilisi, Georgia, so that was very unique.
Right.
I also did a Rotary exchange in Pakistan, so I was there for a month. That was very interesting, challenging. I did, I've been to, I like going to weddings, so probably the most fun trips were, I went to a wedding in Slovakia for one friend, and then I also went to a wedding in Thailand for another student. And
Thailand is fun.
It was really fun. And I was on a Fulbright in Korea, and I really enjoyed that as well. Every place is remarkable in its own way. I think the study abroad was the most challenging. That was the most challenging.
Right. So when you talk to students coming to ISSS, especially the students you already from the country you already been to, do you often talk about your trip to them?
I usually let them know that if I've been there, I let them know I've been there, because I think it's really nice when you can connect with somebody and kind of understand and having been in a place that they've been. So for me, moving here from the West, even knowing that you were in Spokane, right? So I'm like, oh, you have some kind of concept of the West, right? And I think that makes a connection with the person. So
when someone talk to me that they've been to China, I would like to talk to them more.
Absolutely. And it really, I'm looking forward to going to China at some point, somewhere. I mean, it's such a huge country, so it's like, where would I go first? I don't know, but I've had colleagues that have gone and had a very, very good time, and so I'm looking forward to that sometime. I actually have some friends that just started doing research. I can't remember what city, but I'm hoping that they give me an excuse to come visit.
Nice.
Yeah.
I know about ISSS. Before someone who's not familiar, do you want to introduce what you do?
Sure.
Yep.
So, International Services for Students and Scholars oversees primarily the compliance part of student visas. So, all international students come on a student visa.
Right.
And so we help the students during their time here as they figure out how to navigate their student visa. And we also have to do some reporting to the government so that we can have the students. So we kind of maintain the balance. We don't work for the government. We work for the institution. So we serve the students. And so the compliance is the most important part of what we do, helping
Right.
students stay in status for their
Okay.
visa. That's the most important thing we do.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of the other fun parts of what we do and what I'm trying to do in the next coming years is to help develop and learn more about the international student community here, because there's so many international students.
Yeah.
And a lot of Chinese students.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we work together to help them feel comfortable here, to help them find community here,
Right.
to help them enjoy their life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if that's what they want,
Right.
you know. So
Right.
that's kind of the role of ISSS.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Especially for the incoming students, it's not only they're starting college life, it's that they're starting a life in a different country. It could be scary. Do you want to introduce what the regular RPI day is to them?
Oh, regular RPI day.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still learning that myself. I
Right.
think, you know, student life in the United States is different from a lot of places.
Right.
One, because college life is separate often from the family life, right? And most places in the world, students live with their family and go to
True.
school. At least a good number do. And so that transition is often challenging because students need to learn to do things on their own, right?
Right.
But I think, so when students come here, so first we have an orientation for them. So we have an international student orientation. And so that helps to get the students to know each other.
Yeah.
So they have groups of friends, and it helps us to, it helps us to explain what they need to do for their visa.
Right.
But then we try and take parts of the main orientation for all of the students, and we try and give them a little bit more exposure to things that maybe they just don't know because they're not from here. Because the regular orientation is very comprehensive, but it's also based on the idea of students who can already take certain things for granted, right?
Right.
And so we take a look at that orientation and we're like, okay, how can we enhance this for international students? So that's when they get here, that's the first thing they do. And then, so they have all these orientation activities for us and then regular orientation. The students are very, all new students live in the residence halls.
Right.
And so that is actually a really good opportunity for them to live on campus and get to know about campus. And they also do a lot of programming. So
Right.
if the students want, there are a lot of opportunities to get engaged on campus.
Right.
Not all students want that, but that's okay. You know, that's student life, you know. But those that want to, it's really available to them. And so you have residence life, and then there's all different parts of student life outside the classroom.
Right.
Because student life, the life is 90%,
Yeah.
right? It's you're spending 10% in the classroom, and then the rest of it is outside the classroom. So there are all sorts of there's support services through student success, and of course residence life still has lots of programming, and then there's athletics and all sorts of ways for students to be engaged on campus. Lots of student clubs.
Right.
Lots of student clubs. There's the union as well.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very nice for international students to feel like that's a new place, but they don't need to be scared about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about their parents? Does ISSS usually find like parents communicating with you or with anyone?
Parents do not really communicate with us directly. Often if they're first, if we're working with student visas, we're required to work directly with the students,
Right.
Unless the students give explicit instructions to talk to the parents.
Alright.
It's a legal thing in the United States. So if a parent wants to contact us, then usually we'll reach out to the student and we'll say, can we talk to your family? We
Yeah.
have to do it,
Yeah.
right? And I think also many parents. Well, they usually have direct contact with their students, so they're telling their students what they need to do. We don't mind interacting with parents at all. I appreciate parents, you know, they're making a big investment for their students. So if a student wants or needed to reach out to us, we would certainly do that. And then in case of emergency, things like that, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute tries very, very hard to make contact with parents. And in fact, the first year experience and the Office of Student Success, they actually, if the student has problems, they try and send correspondence to the parents, and sometimes they don't have the best way with our international students.
Yeah.
So we're working with other offices to say, how can we streamline this,
right.
So that we can support the families as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because as a single child, I cannot imagine if anything happened to me, what my parents would.
Oh, exactly. And I think, you know, for example, we have a student that's had some health problems and their family's here, and, you know, how do we support the families while they're here, if they even need it? A lot of families don't need it. If there's a large Chinese community here, so if they want to get integrated into that, that's something they can certainly do, and that's something I'm still learning as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going forward, what would you say, since you've worked here for almost a year now, what would you say is the most struggle for international students when they come to you?
So, you know, I think in my experience, not just at RPI, but really international students in general, there are a lot of the life and just making that adjustment, it makes everything a little bit more difficult. So even students that are brilliant, RPI students are brilliant, right?
Thank you.
But yes, it's so impressive to me. And all the parents must be very proud, right? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think that just when you land somewhere new and you're trying to figure everything else out, it makes the schoolwork much more challenging. You're doing everything in a second language, and it's much harder than most students realize. And it's the challenges are not something that are as very tangible. It's harder to hold them, right? It feels subtle, and it's different for every student. So usually I see if students can make it through the first year, that first cycle, they're doing good. So most of the academic struggles are actually personal struggles and just getting adjusted. But most students make it through if they know how to ask questions, and if they can ask questions. Americans really like questions. We want students to be curious and ask for that. So if students, I would say the best thing a student can do is start asking questions. If they're not sure, just ask.
Yeah, for me, the freshman year is a new stuff, and the junior year, the third year, is like another new time, because I'm leaving off campus now, and there's just more and more questions. You're dealing with car insurance, a lease, house lease, house lease, getting. It's like getting a life here.
Exactly.
And even harder for us because we never seen our parents doing it.
Absolutely.
So I guess what I have next is some. Do you think there are cultural difference in daily life really affecting like Chinese students, because it's either they don't know or they misunderstood it. Do you think that's a problem we have here?
Do I think it's a problem? That's a good question. I don't think it's, when you say it's a problem, it's something that I view is all negative. I really think that it's just another challenge. So when you came, you first got used to the student life, and then, like you said, the junior year is a big time because you're making all these decisions and you're dealing with all of these kind of cultural expectations here. But it's nothing that the students can't do, right? And is it challenging? Yes. Is it, especially that first year, do students struggle? Yeah, and it's the same, and I know that struggle. When I lived overseas, I did everything by myself. So they can do it. When I think of how can I support students, usually in orientation, we're telling them, ask questions. There are people to help you. This institution has so many people to help. I think the largest challenge for our students, especially I think our Chinese students, Asian students in general, but Chinese students, because there's so many, they're just all in a group, they think they can figure everything out themselves. But they don't have to. And there are so many support services, and we're trying to reach out to them. If we see students struggling, Student Success is emailing them, we're trying to contact them. I think the biggest issue is when students don't answer our emails because we want to help them.
Right.
Most of the time students are not in trouble. We are trying to say, hey, we know you need help. Come get help. And that's usually, most of their struggles are kind of self-imposed, right? But yeah, it's been really interesting to work with our Chinese students here. And see how creative they can be in navigating their life.
And the biggest lesson I've learned living here is that I didn't know that we need to get our car registered every 2 years. And I forgot to do that and got pulled over and spent a lot of money on it.
I bet you did.
Yeah, but that's some kind of lesson I can make up. I want to talk about an incident last semester that Chinese international students was found trying to purchase a rifle, and he was expelled from the school and sent back home. I don't know how his parents see it. The whole thing to me sounds like a big misunderstanding. I don't know that person, but I have friends who knows him. He seems like a nice guy, and he's not trying to harm anyone.
Sure.
Do you think it's the fact that really he doesn't know about it, or he thinks he's
I'm sure the foundation of it is, in my opinion. In my opinion, it was probably just a bad decision that he made. So, for example, gun laws are different from state to state, number one. And regardless of people's opinions about guns, the laws are in place, right? And I think that when this happened, I honestly, he probably just didn't know. And that's my opinion. And you know, however the student and the higher level administration acted, I can't say to that. I do know that right now, just within the political climate, and then within all of so many other social things that are happening, on a cultural level, I understand the initial reaction. But fundamentally, I don't judge the student. I think the student just made a bad decision. Like I said, I came from Montana, and how people approach guns there is totally different. But it is challenging because these things happen. And gosh, I wouldn't know, like, how could have we supported the student? I don't really know, because the decision was made and I was told to implement in dealing with the visa. But when that happened, the other important thing is that when that happened and the student and his family were trying to figure out what to do next, the important thing to remember from my perspective is that his visa status was his status. And so when they needed help, I wanted to make sure that they had that help. And regardless of any other institutional or legal things, the student's visa status is their status. And so my job is to be here to help them through that. Because, I mean, I can't imagine what his family's thinking either. And it's something that I take, it's very heavy to me because it's such a small mistake. And it has such large consequences. And sometimes I deal with that here. Sometimes students make very simple mistakes that can change how it affects their visa status, and they have no idea. Now, the thing about American culture is we would say, okay, well, what did he learn from this, right? That's what the Americans would say. Like, but I know that it doesn't always translate, number one. And I'm sure that saving face would be very challenging for that. But in my opinion, like I said, just a really a young, dumb mistake. When
I first heard about it, in our Chinese community, we do have a little debate.
Oh, I'm sure.
We have a lot of.
I'm interested to know.
Yeah,
what
we
was
have
the
a lot of
debate?
people for law and order and say like that's
the law.
Yeah, that's a really big mistake. And like I don't know why do you buy a
Yeah,
rifle?
what were you thinking? Yeah.
Yeah, and another side are saying like this person may never come back in his life. Like if that's in his record, he may never come back or travel abroad anywhere.
Yeah.
And to me, both sides make strong arguments.
Yeah, of course. And for me, I see the same things that you do. Knowing, like I can understand the argument. Like I said, culturally I understand, and I understand why the school reacted the way it did. I understand why the government reacted the way it did. Whether or not I agree with it, I understand it. But as an advisor, as somebody who's worked with young people and young students for a long time, and also knowing the implications for the visa status, that makes me really sad because and also, gosh, I mean, again, we talk about his parents, and that is the face of that, right? That is something that I can't even imagine, and but I really hope for the best for him because again, if he's here, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that there will be other venues for this student to make a path, and I would say. My friends joke. I'm not just an optimist. I'm a militant optimist. So I work at being optimistic, right? And I really think that when life, regardless of your choice, when life puts a stop here, then there's going to be another path that comes open, and that's really what I hope for the student and his family. Because
that's what everyone hoped for him.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing you want to say to the incoming students, like if you met a person today and he or she is telling you that I'm going to RPI for my first year, what would you say to them?
I'd say welcome.
Okay.
Right? I would say be patient with yourself.
Okay.
We all have expectations and we all fall short of our own expectations. And I would say laugh as much as possible. Laugh at yourself as much as possible, right? Be patient with yourself. And enjoy your time here and ask questions. Ask questions. If you're not sure, there's somebody here to help you. And that's what I hope in this office is we tell our students, even if you don't know where to go, you can come to my office and we will make sure that we put you in the right direction. That's something that I think is the biggest asset we can give students. Is like there's so many things for you to learn. So if you just come here, we might not know the answer, but I can put you in the right direction. So that's what I would tell a student.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
I think that's very helpful, either for incoming students or their parents, because they, especially the parents, they want to know their kids are in good hands.
Absolutely.
I think that comes to the end of this interview.
Thank you.
And do you want to say something special to the League of Sage, that our organization?
Thank you for inviting me for an interview. I appreciate the outreach and I absolutely appreciate the connections that we're making, and so that we can be able to better support our Chinese students here at RPI.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.